One of the most amazing literary works that we have in our possession right now is the story of Enki and Enlil. And Enki was an Anunnaki that traveled to Earth from another planet. A full description of their travel was encoded on a clay tablet and laid buried in the city of Nimrud for a couple thousand years until it was found here recently. And on that tablet was a full description of the celestial chariot that they used to travel from there to here. And although it's vague, the description is kind of vague, and it's written kind of cryptically in a mannerism, in a manner of speaking that we don't use commonly today. But contained within that information is a precise description of the mechanical workings of the vehicle itself. It's like we're in the places where they talk about harmonic resonance. That's easy to understand that that's what they're talking about. Just by what they say and how they say it. And there's other areas of that discussion that aren't quite so prevalent and easy to comprehend. But having somewhere to start with, having the harmonic resonance to start with, I was able to decode some of the more cryptic passages in that particular part of the statement. And that's what led me to understand what I know about this vehicle. And that's why I'm making this video. So the translator of this literary work would have done well for him or herself if they would have called that which shows the way a mass inclinator, right? And then secondly, the humming stones. Those are a harmonic resonator, right? So you have a mass inclinator, a harmonic resonator, and then you have a intrusive concussion apparatus. And if you can put all three of those together in a machine that makes something move, then you can understand how, they were talking about a real, genuine tool of engineering excellence. So not only am I an amateur linguist, I'm also an amateur structural and mechanical engineer. So I have a broad base of knowledge when it comes to decoding passages like that. I can easily transliterate those statements into modern statements of physics or mechanical theory, so on and so forth, to be able to arrive at the determinations that found their way into this video. The Great Cracker was just like a plate soil compactor. In other words, it vibrates at a certain speed that will allow it to crawl forward, and you can make a heavy machine move, or you can move heavy objects with that same energy. Because it's a forward crawling vibration, and that's what the Great Cracker was. It was a machine that did that. If there is actually a vehicle that was capable of making that trip from there to here, it had to be a technological device that can be understood. And it had to have operated on physics that we're aware of. And the physics I'm talking about is the physics of thrust, the physics of harmonic resonance, sciences such as that. And there's only so many ways that you can propel a heavy object. And it's my intent to catalog and categorize those various physics so that we can look at it and make astute determinations about what physics were used to build the spacecraft. Harmonic resonance and intrusive percussion are the two sciences that I easily identified from the very beginning in association with this vehicle. And so before I even got a good start on trying to analyze just exactly what they were doing back then, I already had those parameters in mind. So one of the first things I did is I did a simple test with a tuning fork. It's far more easily forced into motion. So in other words, when it's vibrating, you tap it, it slides forward really, really easy. So with the very first test that I did along those lines, I discovered that there was something real behind this. So that led me to further investigations. Now, a lot of people confuse harmonic resonance with structural frequency. I'll explain the difference between the two. Harmonic resonance is an object that vibrates at a frequency and wavelength that dissipates the energy inside the object at a metered rate of speed, right? Structural frequency is where the vibration running through the object reaches an amplitude and frequency that causes the object to shatter or break. And so those ancient people using harmonic resonance to lessen the effort that it takes to move an object is really quite genius. They were also at great risk of causing structural frequency episodes to occur. That's why it says Nibirus chariots ate them like hungry lions, meaning that the stone configuration that they were hammering together with metal straps was likely to experience an episode of structural frequency. So in other words, when the harmonic resonance is fully engaged, that it doesn't take much more energy to cause that to go into structural frequency, which the vehicle breaks. And strangely enough, if you carefully read through the writings that you see on the screen, you'll be able to see that in the writing. It tells you that. It tells you that the vehicle runs on harmonic resonance, and that they feared structural frequency because they caused the vehicle to break, and it was such a concern of theirs that they even wrote it into the legend. And then in another portion of the reading, it describes how they would strike stones on the outside of the vehicle, and that those stones would be thrown forward, and that's what made the way for the vehicle. So there's heavy stones in motion. You have harmonic resonance. You have intrusive concussions going on. It's like kicking a basketball. When you kick a basketball, the reaction is the ball bounces away at an amplified measure of energy. And so this vehicle did exactly the same thing, only it was made out of stone. And the construction method is something that we know. We have dozens of representations of stones being strapped together with ties, metal ties, little bow tie anchors that they would carve into two rocks laying alongside of each other, and they would pour liquid metal into it, and that would lock the stones together. Well, that's how the vehicle is described as being constructed, because it says it was made by hammering together rocks and boulders. That's what it says. And if you look at those stones that were locked together with bow ties, you're looking at a representation of what that sentence is describing right there. So it's in those areas that I think we can make a lot of headway in retro-analyzing the technology that they used, even though the descriptions are cryptic and vague, and they're written in a speaking style that we're not accustomed to. But that doesn't mean that we can't comprehend what they're saying. In that clip that I just showed you, you heard the tuning fork. You heard the humming stone being pounded on. And yeah, I showed an image of an oil derrick, providing the rotating, hammering action that would be necessary to make a system like that work. And although it's not a perfectly defined situation, but it allowed me to have a glimpse of what the machine was actually doing, and it's really a brilliant idea to use those three energies together to break the amount of force it takes to move an object. It just to me it's genius. So that's enough for the history and background of this discussion. And there's a lot of questions that can be asked, like, what is that which showed the way? What are the humming stones? What is the great cracker? What is the propulsion theory? What is the structural theory? We have to answer these questions and more. How did that which showed the way, the humming stones, and the great cracker manage to move such a gigantic object? Some, if not all, of these technologies still exist today, such as the plate soil compactor of the construction trade. There are many harmonic devices out there, such as cell phone buzzers. Dentist drills make their way into this discussion. And so if I'm going to design a modern vessel according to this very old design, I've got to have design basics. I've got to identify the physics. I have to develop graphs and charts, to test material, to know what all the material is worth. And then there's mechanical and structural blueprints that would have to be started to, get worked on. So, but first comes in understanding what's being said to know what the vehicle looks like. And I think these drawings that we're looking at right now are a very close modern rendering of what they were using back then, where they may have had stones attached to moving wooden parts, and metal parts. Our modern day, my design is based on plastics. So it's basically a plastic vehicle on the outside, rubber coated plastic vehicle on the outside. So it's flexible yet very hard and strong. It can be loaded, with a specific exact amount of weight, So the design that I'm presenting right here, after reading the information that I'm presenting to you in the photos, it's an exact copy of what's being said. So that's really intriguing to think that even now I can make this modern design, even my plastics and all that stuff. And back in this ancient time, it was they were using stone. But that design and this design that I have here are very much the same. If you could compare the two of them together, you'd see that they're just exactly very much the same, because they operate on the same physics. So there's only so many ways to do certain things. So the humming stones are just tempered stone, and the thing about the tempered stone is the way that it transfers sound waves. So it does a really unique thing, because it's all one single crystal. Basically, the stone is one single crystal. It radiates sound waves in a certain special way that easily engages the stone into motion or into vibrating. And it'll take a vibration into itself really quickly, and it'll release the vibration very quickly. So that's a unique quality. So that's why I was thinking that the ancient people were using the humming stones with the Great Cracker. Now, that the Great Cracker is just a machine is very much like a plate soil compactor. And it would have excited an object with vibrations that would vibrate at a frequency that makes it move. The object, that is, Now your average plate soil compactor weighs 300 pounds. Yeah, that's 300 US pounds. Yeah, so the average guy isn't going to move that around. Maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, but the vibration that it produces, 6,000 VPM. You can move the plate soil compactor across the ground with just the touch of your fingers, basically. I mean, it's almost effortless to make it move across the ground because the vibration breaks the friction and allows it to slide easily. And so that's the same principle that was used on the gigantic stones, like the stone of the pregnant lady in Baalbek. That's how that stone was moved, is with the technique that I just described to you and that I'm showing you in this video. So if you carefully read the literature and look at the photos of the design that I'm showing you, you'll see that it's exactly the same thing, and it does exactly what's being described. And although, as I said earlier, it's worded in a cryptic kind of way that is not a common manner of speaking today, but at one time it was a common manner of speaking. And back then, what it meant is what I'm showing you in these drawings. Yeah, that's what I discovered. The Great Cracker was a machine that's very much like a plate soil compactor that vibrates at high revolutions of frequency and is capable of exciting a massive weight in such a way that causes it to be easy to move. And so I would call this harmonic synthesis, which means that the process transforms petite or minute energies into a grand energy. And so in other words, the three minute energies that are present in the object all come together in a focused way that causes a grand effect to happen. And so that's harmonic synthesis. And that's the secret to moving stones like the pregnant lady in Baalbek and other giant megalithic stones that you find distributed throughout the world. They're removed with a process that's called harmonic synthesis. Which is just the amplification of minor energies. So the Great Cracker and the Humming Stones worked together, and they were controlled by what they called that which showed the way. And to me, that's like an inertial inclinator, which is basically where when you spin something in a rotation rapidly, the weight of the object will shift to one position, and that object will be inclined to either lean that way or it'll travel that direction, because its inertial momentum is shifted in that direction. And so to me, that's when they're describing what that which showed the way is interacting with everything else going on. That's what I got out of that. So that's a really, really good description of all three of the machines that are in use on that vehicle. Is inertial inclination, harmonic resonance, and then of course you have the action of the plate soil compactor, the forward crawling vibration. That's kind of sending the whole thing forward. And so with that idea in mind, I drew, the drawings of this spacecraft that I'm showing you right here. This vehicle right here does every one of the things that I just described to you. And only I designed it to be built out of plastic. And it could have stone in it. I mean, legitimately, for the mass. I mean, for the weight, the weight that it needs to be. It would be a really good thing to use granite in a lot of places. But of course, it's a spacecraft, so the shell of the vehicle would be built around all of that, and you really wouldn't have to see it even. But it would be there. And it all depends on who's building it, what materials are chosen and why. That's another one of those questions that would have to be asked. If you're actually going to build something like that, I mean, what are you going to build it out of? How do you know the materials are suitable to do what you need them to do? Where's the graphs and charts that show the suitability of each one of the items? That's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of work. But somebody needs to do it. My name is Eugene Runkus, and you've been listening to the Ancient Machines podcast. So I take the legendary mythical accounts fairly seriously when I read through them, because I compare the information in ways that a lot of people may not think of. But as you can see in this case right here, what was written exactly matches what I was able to design. As far as a vehicle symmetry goes, it literally does everything that's described in the text. So yeah, I'd say that's a pretty amazing thing. And it took a long time to work all of it out too. I mean, I just didn't sit down and figure it out 2 minutes later. I mean, I've literally worked on this project for nearly 4 decades. I discovered it in the early 80s. So that was a long time ago. And I've worked on it, I've done my math, done my research, built my models and conducted tests, and I've just done so many things over that span of time. And all that kind of culminates together into one single piece with this video and the vehicle that I'm presenting to you, that is directly based and designed off of the technology I believe came from the text of the ancient Sumerian clay tablets.